This problem is with me since a couple of years now, and as we all know that auditors are some kind of resource that is not so often seen in the world. And also, we know that we all are thinking and acting most of the time in documents when it comes to management systems, quality management systems. And no one loves, at least I don't know anyone who loves to write those documents. And I also don't know anyone who loves to read the documents. And especially as there is so much words in these documents that add no additional information and do not add any value. So this is a big problem in the world of medical devices, and I think thought a long time about the solution of that. So why are audits so expensive in terms of time and also in terms of money? Auditors are sparse. And one problem is, as an auditor, you have to analyze a very complex situation in a company. If every company would have somehow the same quality management documentation and somehow the same quality management system, it would be fairly easy to audit these. But there are not a lot of rules and not a lot of common understanding how a quality management system shall document it like and how it shall be operated. There are some similarities from customer to customer, but they are not equal. So one of the main tasks for me as an auditor is that I try to detect where are the blind spots and the pain points for the company, because also it's necessary to keep in mind that if a company would have a quality management system that is absolutely perfect and perfectly operating, they wouldn't have anything to hide, because product information will not be in the quality management system. So there would, in my perspective, be no reason to not publish the entire quality management system, like you have it in software industry for example, for Firefox, Mozilla. They have, and a lot of other open source projects. They have their quality management system, the bug tracker, open for everyone to read into it and to interact with it when they find problems. But most companies I know are somehow afraid of that others might think they are not doing good, others might think that they could do better, and therefore they also try to hide some of their faults and errors and their uncertainties. And my task as an auditor is to discover those things and not to blame them, which is really difficult sometimes. From my personal opinion as a person, in my experience, I often was too harsh, but didn't mean to be, and this somehow rejected people also. But that also is somehow necessary to be on the point and to tell people, here, this point is not okay, this will lead you into trouble in the next 2 years or so, and people don't like to hear that. And of course, auditing means not making friends.
You want to do peels for lunch?
Pardon?
Huh? You want to do?
Larry, what?
Mute.
We're having trouble with your sound, but I think Eckhard is informing us that he has no friends, and that saddens me, and I would like to extend our friendship as a group to you. So please.
No, this is a misunderstanding. I have some friends I have, but if you do audits, you don't make friends while doing it. This is what I mean. The reason why I say this is once I was in an audit and I asked for where a specific person gets specific information from and how he knows that it is like this. And he told me, yes, I asked someone, he is my friend, and he told me, but it was not documented. So I said to him, well, if you have it documented, you don't need friends to tell you. But also, most people don't like their auditors. At least I do not know a lot of them. Maybe others are different, but anyway, I separate auditing and making friendship with people. And outside of audits, there's also a nice contact to my clients and so on. This is not a problem. So don't be worried about it. How to cope with such complex things? What I learned is if you have something very complex, it's good to decompose it into small chunks and to make it these chunks as small as possible. And then work on one after the other. And one other thing is if you do things again and again and again the same way, it's easier to automate them. And I know that there was some research in the early 20, I don't know when, beginning of the century, where someone, I think it was MIT, they found out that if you do one thing in software development or in this industry 3 times the same way, then it's cheaper to automate it than to do it a 4th and a 5th time the same way. And of course, there's always something that is not possible to automate, which is new, which you don't know if you do it the same way next time again. And then you need to find some smart way to deal with that. And how auditing for me looks like is like now I want to focus on the ISO 1345, and here it is chapter 4.11. This is 4 sentences and a note, and this is rather complex. It looks not so complex, but it is. And when I started to analyze the standard, I found at this chapter, I found out that this chapter decomposes to 29 different requirements, atomic requirements. So each of them has the potential to have to be fulfilled. And the entire ISO 1345 consists of 1010 atomic requirements. And that shows that it's not so easy and not a lightweight task to fulfill them within a week or so. But it's easier to structure the workload when you know how many requirements you are. You can also distribute the workload on fulfilling the requirements easier. You can group them and so on. As you see, they are very formula written, just simple sentences, subject, predicate, object, and in some instances there are also conditions. That's my main work, which I did for the last 25 years now. It's requirements engineering, and there I learned that the number that frightens you often, like 29 requirements or 10 or 1,000 requirements, is not the point. The point is how you process them afterwards. And just in a recent project, I could prove that if we generate 3,000 atomic requirements instead of maybe 200 not so clear requirements, it is the time to review, only to review the requirements is less than 10% than the workload which you have with the atomic requirements. So in this QMS standard, we have 1,000 requirements, and as an auditor, I need to know what to ask.
Eckhard, if you go back a slide, and I know you'll appreciate that this is not my functional, I won't say expertise, even knowledge. Should I interpret this slide to say that using some of the work that you've been doing, that you've narrowed 1,000 requirements down to basically 29 because of all of the redundancies? Is that your message? And perhaps someone who does this for a living, the Michelles, Robs, Marins, can you, how do you, I'm not sure I'm following.
The starting point is this text. You have to understand and analyze this text.
Yes.
And if you look into the second sentences, establish is one activity, implement is one activity,
Mhm.
maintain is one activity. There are different activities. And then again, you have a requirement, procedure, activity, or arrangement required.
Okay.
This is one sentence, which is very, very complex from the content point of view. And my previous profession was to decompose such monster sentence into single, easy, understandable, natural language sentences like these. Does that answer the question somehow?
I'm afraid not entirely for me, but I'm not your primary audience. If
Joe,
it's
Joe, that's he
Go ahead,
boiled just that one section down to 29 lines. If you do the whole thing, there's 1,010.
I
Yes.
see. I see. And I think this is, you're setting up the premise of how you're going to use AI to make this manageable.
Yes, not to make this manageable, but to audit these requirements. If I continue now, you've seen this already.
Yes, go ahead.
For each of these requirements, you have to know what to ask the customer. And I made myself a list of questions, and this is part of my automating this really boring task of asking the same question and again and again and again. So you decompose it into single steps, and then I needed to watch myself what is the next step I usually do when I not automate it. And as a software engineer, I know I have inputs, I have outputs, and I have to list all that. And then I need to create a step-by-step manual that somehow every child can understand, so that everyone could be able to perform the same steps and could get to the same result. And then it's easy to transform that in some kind of script or something like that. But the question is 1,000 requirements and what to ask. I've made myself a list of 8,500 possible questions. So I have some kind of list for all the ISO 13485 requirements, what I can ask. And if one of the questions is not answered, I know this is a potential non-conformity and I need to look closer into that. And in cases where all these questions are answered, I know that the audit is passed successfully. So there's no question open, no contradiction, and so on. And when we use AI, we start to compare the question to the given answer and to evaluate the degree of how the answer satisfies the question. So this is something that AI can easily do already. When the AI sees the complete picture of all the answers that a company gave or an organization gave to this audit, we see also contradictions and some points that are missing and so on, and we can list them. And the AI can then learn from human interaction from the auditors how to interpret the answers even better. So if there are some misalignments or misunderstandings, that it's easier for the AI to process. The goal is that we, in the end, have a platform where we can perform audits within a couple of seconds, and we can provide continuous audits so that participating companies are on a permanent audit, and they a better reputation than having somewhere a certificate under the table or document somewhere. And what we aim to is to use the AI to make audits damn fast, so that we don't need so much auditors anymore, as our auditors will only look into the results that the AI presents and then decide if they can approve or if they look deeper into what is done. This is now some screenshots. This is the dashboard where you can see the degree of fulfillment for one of the qualities. And you see here in the end, there's one small little green part already fulfilled. The rest is not fulfilled yet. This is my test database, and I didn't work much with that. So I'm a lazy one.
I visited this website while you were speaking. This is your website, and you're saying it's still under development and it's not ready for customers? Or
yes,
what I said is true? You're not ready for clients?
We are not ready for clients for the automation. I come to that in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But we are open for doing audits.
The way you're describing an audit, it sounds like the AI software is doing a review for where can I find this requirement. Is that correct?
Yes, partly this is one part, yes. Where can I find one requirement to be satisfied by the documentation? So in the first step, it is a review, an automated review of the quality management manual.
Okay. So the manual is only one part of it, but even if you include all the procedures, that would allow you to see if the requirements are being met, but it doesn't give you the ability to see if there are inconsistencies, and it doesn't look at records. And so it seems like a useful tool for maybe a pre-certification of your documentation, but it doesn't cover records, it doesn't cover training, and it doesn't catch inconsistencies. So they might have one requirement's met over here, but here's another sentence that contradicts that. And I don't see how it would catch that part.
Well, the contradictions are found by the system. This is not the problem. The problem with records and for example, when you have look into top management reviews, if they are performed in time and if the records of the review are really consistent, then you of course need the AI needs access, read-only access, of course, to your quality management system to find the records and to scan them and to find the contact, identify the contact, read the contact. That would be the same as a human auditor, but it would be done by the machine.
Okay. It just, but the part with the records is the part it doesn't cover, correct?
Not yet, but it's of course in the plan to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not these questions vary by whatever diagnostic or therapeutic you're doing.
No. Simply, this is a simple answer is no. The more complex answer is if you find a requirement that is not applicable for you, for your company, for your situation, for your product, then you still might want to answer this question with not applicable because. Then you have a justification why that is not applicable, and then you can satisfy every auditor.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Please continue.
So when you start the auditing process, you select a chapter that shall be audited. and then a question rises up, and if you give an answer that is not somehow related to that, at least not related to that question, like this one, you won't satisfy the system. A different situation is when you, this is a different question then, when you enter an answer that relates to that question, then you can finalize the answer, and in the colored bar, the system already shows to you some indication if that satisfies the requirement or not. Of course, what's missing here is, and the answer is the link to the database and the database field or document. You could add this to the answer as well, and this would be saved then. And in the next run, this would be questions again, and question would be if it's still the same or not. So our next steps for GenieCert are, continue with the implementation of the MVP. Then we launch GenieCert as a platform. And what we then want to do is to have some clients who want to replace their internal audits by automated audits. This would be the first step. And we need to train our system on that. And next year, early next year, we will start for the application to be a certification body. We already have spoken to the Irish accreditation board, and they are delighted and waiting for a process. One of the answers was, I wish I would have such a system for my work. They still work with paper, real paper on their table. Yeah, that's it from my side. I think there might be more questions to me.
Yes, there's one from Elizabeth, and she writes, let's see, is there a requirement for the company to have a specific record management software? And then she writes parenthetically, can this search through Word, Excel, Google, etc.? She's joined us as a panelist. So Elizabeth, if you have some color to add.
Well, I was just curious if I've got my QMS in a system and your AI is going to come in and search through it to get answers, in order for it to manage the different softwares that or storage systems that people might have their answers in. Can it do all of those, including proprietary QMS software?
That depends if the QMS software allows access from external.
That makes sense. But what about the other kind of more typical things? Would it be able to search through other files?
Yes, it's able to search through documents, through PDF documents. It's able to search Excel tables, Word documents, and I believe that during establishing this process of using AI, more and more companies will reduce the number of Excel sheets and Word documents and so on, and base their quality management system more in a not document-centered system, but in a database-centered system, like an eQMS. And also there's a QMS in Germany developed by Jona Institute, which is based on Jira, or Jira, I don't know how you pronounce it, in America. And these are fairly easy to audit then. What I need to say to the setup of the infrastructure for our clients, each of our clients will have their own private server. And this private server will not have any connection to the AI that we use. So the data that companies enter are private to them. They will not go out to OpenAI or Google or some company like that. Because also we don't want to train their system. We want to keep it in our system. also-
Thanks. I have more questions, but I'll turn it to Maren.
Lauren?
See if my microphone works today.
Yay, it does.
Yay!
Yes.
So it's a very interesting idea. Obviously, there's a lot of variation in quality management systems and record access and things like that. My question is, if you're going for certification, what's the effort and how are you showing that the system is actually getting the correct answers?
You're
When
asking
I
how to
talk,
verify the work. How can you work with it confidently, right? That's your question, Maureen?
No, it's how do you know the results that you're getting are right?
Yes.
I mean, you're relying on this information. How would you confirm that something wasn't missed? Or how would you confirm that you didn't find issues that weren't actually issues?
I think this is part of the training of the system. But basically, when I have spoken to the Irish Accreditation Board, they were convinced that this fine granularity of the questions and the relation of the questions to the ISO standard, they were convinced that our system knows the ISO standard very, very exactly. And if you, for example, when our system discovers there's a sentence in the answer that is in passive voice, then this is somehow easy to detect. Then it tries to convert this sentence into an active voice sentence. And in a future implementation status, there will be also a dialogue where the system asks, is this intended like this? Like in this active voice sentence? Because if you have a sentence in passive voice, you have no responsible entity to do the action that is required. And all these things we can discover with the AI and the language processing. And the structure of the questions and the structure of the fine granularity requirements also make it possible to discover contradictions and misouts.
Well, do you have something to add?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. This is interesting concept. I believe that QMS part is with less variables. So any, data training can be easy. You mentioned Jira, where you have documented requirements all the way traced to the activity, finished, testing, standard, another less variables there, right? You can train your software for that. And I'm with Maureen to say, when it comes to records, there are so many variables. Those variables are your input. And then the output is how you're going to validate that. So that part I really puzzle. I think Rob also touched on it. I think that part is pretty complex. So I'm sure you have thoughts about that, but in my mind, if I have to purchase a software to do that, to reduce my headcount, for example, I would look for that validation, how good your validation is. That's a comment.
Thank you.
How, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Matrix, but how do you keep this thing from turning into the Matrix and making decisions on its own about, oh no, this is a major when it should be a minor? Because a lot of those are kind of an objective decision, kind of based off of the feel the auditor gets, not only about the evidence, but the company's understanding of what was wrong and what broke down, and the totality of how the audit went.
Yeah. In my experience over the years, also as a requirements engineer, I was trained to quantify everything. So also to quantify the feelings. And I have a friend, his name is Tom Gibb, a very interesting, very senior person in systems engineering. And he was able to convince me that he is able to quantify love. So if you need to find out about the feeling the feeling of an auditor is sometimes misleading. We had the discussion a couple of days ago about what's in the memory of an auditor and the experience and so on, and you can't rely on that. Then you have the next auditor and something strange happens. But the machine will tell you these are some points where it's somehow unclear. For example, if you have any in your documentation, you have any adjective, grammatical adjective that is not quantified, then you can be rather sure that there is something that you have to look deeper into. And I would have to do that anyway as an auditor. If I find an undefined adjective, I look into that. So we will not rely fully on that machine, and even not in the first 2 years, of course. And in the end, there will always be a human that looks into the decision proposal. But the time for processing 80% or 90% of the things that are clear is reduced largely.
And that's consistent with what I heard at the AI conference I attended in August, that people are very afraid of being displaced and not having jobs writing. That may well be, but we're going to need 10 times as many editors, because if you can churn out 1,000 articles a day, somebody still needs to make sure that it makes sense. So I don't know about you, but
we have not enough auditors anyway. So we do not have. Every day I get 10 requests for if I do not want to become an auditor at BSI or TÜV or.
Is that true? Are you personally receiving daily requests for audits?
Not daily, but only over LinkedIn. It's at least once a week.
So maybe you're exploring this out of necessity, and it could vastly improve how many clients you could handle.
Yeah, at least this is what I expect from the machine. I could handle more clients in the same time, and this would be much cheaper for the clients.
Eckhard, I saw, again, I know your website is in development. It appears to me as though you're setting it up so that the company would create an account. I'm thinking, given the way it works and the like, wouldn't they engage you to use the system on their behalf? And so they don't need an account, they need to work with you. Or is the account the portal where you show them the work that you're going to do? It's a tool for the consultant, not for the company to do the work. Am I correct?
That's difficult now. So basically, they have to set up an account for themselves. So they have their internal quality management persons who interact with the system. And I keep the role to be an auditor, but I have the tool for them and for me. Another way could be to have auditors, freelance auditors, to use the system to work with their clients as a third party or so, or a white label, something like this. Another thing that maybe Rob and
Michelle,
others might not like to hear is that, of course, it seems to be very easy to think that if that software system is acting like, how do you call this? In old Microsoft Word version, there was that thing that popped up every now and then. And
Bob.
Yeah. And to implement something like that, like a chatbot, that helps you develop your quality management system in defining the answers. Because what you get when you enter your answer, and this is saved, you have your quality management documented properly. And this could also change the world that ISO 13485 consultants are working. They could also, maybe if they are open to that, they could increase their market because they could also serve more clients at the same time.
Juha?
Yes, hello, it's Juha Hämäläinen from Servidas in Finland. Thanks for the very interesting presentation. As a use case, this replacing internal audits with your system is very intriguing because currently small companies have to buy third-party auditors to do internal audits, which is a total disaster. It costs a lot, and then eventually the notified body will ask the credentials of this third-party company that made the internal audits, which makes you really pissed off. But so if you could provide a certified audit that does the internal audits, that would help a lot small companies.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
There was no question. I was just
it was clear.
like promoting this as a new interesting tool.
We'll interpret your hand as like a high five, like I'm with you, brother.
I think this has a lot of potential for pre-evaluation, pre-assessments. I think it has potential to reduce work for auditors and point them in the right direction for things to focus on and verify. I don't see it as a replacement. And so if you shrink the amount of duration that an auditor has to spend time on something, you still don't have enough auditors to do all the audits.
Right.
Because they still have to travel from site to site, and the requirements to be on site and review records, interview people, and do other things. But this can definitely reduce the workload. Other areas where this could be used are in submissions. So when you go into the eStar now, if you put in the wrong answer in the box, it pops up a warning in a JavaScript window that says this isn't correct. This is typically not, but it's all rule-based. It's not AI-based. And the FDA has really struggled with how do we create this when we have over 1,000 different product codes. So I think when you have a standardized template that everybody must submit in, it becomes easier to train your AI algorithms and anticipate some of these things. And just by teaching the AI algorithm based on the deficiencies that the FDA has keep on popping up, they can fine tune those pop-up windows that give people help. And they already have little help buttons that you can click on. So I think there's a lot of potential for this kind of a tool in a submission format where you have standardized templates. But when you have quality systems where they tell you right up front, do not copy and paste from the standard, do not give us verbatim what the standard says, put it in your own words and tell us what your device company does, tell us what the intent of your quality system is. That's going to be very difficult. And when you add records to that, which are going to be even more different, it just makes it harder and harder to reach the goal of we're going to replace auditors with AI. You can shorten the work cycle. You can point them in the right direction so they don't miss basic things. You could even ask companies like NSAI could say, here's our form, fill in all the things that we need and attach them, and the AI algorithm will figure out what's missing. And we can do our stage 1 audits that way to see if you're ready for stage 2. So I could see potentially automating stage 1 audits with AI, but I can't see replacing a stage 2 on site. They won't even let us do them off site. They required during COVID the auditors go on site and do stage 2 audits, especially
in Europe. Yeah. In Europe, we have remote audits already.
We have remote audits in the US as well, but they will not allow it for MDSAP. And it's not allowed in Europe either. It's part of the law for the MDSAP certification. They can't do remote audits. They have to be on site. Now, they'll have one auditor work remotely and one auditor work on site. But even as somebody that's taught people how to do remote audits for third-party auditors, the challenge has always been, I have a paper record that I've filled in with pen, and I have test results, and how do I get that to the auditor? I have to scan it, and I have to make it available on the screen, and they have to read it. And if everything were digital and nothing were handwritten, that would really help, but nothing is in the same format. Every company's got their own forms, everybody's got their own test reports, everybody's got their own device, so There are some things that will still require a human, but I don't think your goal was to eliminate people. It was more to
No.
make it reduce the amount of work that had to be done by people to fit the available people that are on the planet.
It sounds to me as though there are a number of people on the call who would benefit from the development of this tool. Eckhard, are you doing this on your own? And if so, are you open to the idea of getting help from others in some kind of arrangement where they could benefit financially for its rollout or something? Would anyone on this call want to be in regular contact with Eckhard and be part of a team to get this thing done? I'm just trying to make a connection here, if that makes sense for anyone.
I'm open for working with. I do not want to do it alone. It's too big.
Mm-hmm. So I
And
won't
the
put
more
anyone on the
people we are
spot,
working,
but
the more people we are,
pardon me.
the more people we are, the more things we can achieve,
Right.
and faster. That's clear.
Eckhard
really
is
open.
part of our MDG Premium community. You can find him on Slack and reach him directly. And if it makes sense for you to collaborate with him, I'm sure he'll welcome that. So Eckhard, thank you very much for showing us what's possible. It's still being developed. It could be very helpful. And I guess we need more eyes on it to bring it to fruition.
Definitely.
I think that's it for this week. And thank you, everybody. Good to see you. And I'll see you next week.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.